Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this space talk titled Mastering Identity Resolution to Assemble Prospect Buying Teams. I'm Felix Serna, VP of Marketing at LeadSpace, and with me is Amish Shet, or VP of Solutions Engineering.
Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us today.
Right. So today, and we're gonna turn off our video so you have full bandwidth for the uh, slides. Today, we have this short agenda. We're going to start going back on what is identity resolution. Then we'll talk about buying teams. We'll see how leveraging identity resolution um, helps IDing buying team members. We'll have some customer stories, and then we'll even have some little time for any questions that the audience may have. So going back to the main topic here of introduction, what is identity resolution? Some of you may know we had another webinar run by Cameron Poe, who's in Amish's team, um, where we explain identity resolution. We are kind of making a series out of this, and you'll see in a minute why. Um, to recap quickly, the idea here is finding who your prospects are, what company they work for, in what role they play, and how they are situated on the buying team. Also, are they prospects, customers, or partners? Can you identify the account by location and what type of activities they perform? And you'll see that the differentiation when we'll start talking about personas and roles and the importance that that has. So, what are the buying teams? Everybody is talking about buying teams recently. It's the next thing after account-based marketing, right? Now, what are those accounts? Who's in those accounts? We have several personas that we identify: actual users of the product that you're selling and marketing, the decision makers and budget holders in line management that have the capability to execute a request for information, an RFP with a proposal, and then make the decision. Executives, which would participate in this decision at the VP and C level, and then other actors, procurement managers, infrastructure, IT advisors, and evaluators that are going to be looking at the different aspects of fitting your solution within your target company, and then folks associated with legal and compliance um, functions that are going to be trying to see how that solution, once purchased, is going to fit into the company. The idea of having these personas is associated with the concept of creating superior um, customer and prospect experiences that are necessarily based on personalized content that is relevant to each role, to each persona in that buying team. So, for example, if we are talking about um, decision maker, that it's a budget holder, then that content may be a comparative guide, or it may be an opportunity to actually try the product and kick the tires. If you are talking about the content that will be relevant for a procurement manager, we may be looking at a pricing calculator, for example. And if we are talking about the compliance folks in that part of the team, the relevant content for them could be certifications, like ISO certifications, for example, and any type of security requirements that may be part of their final environment where your product is going to have to play. Um, for the same reasons, if you are trying to build something very agile and very relevant for everyone, for example, using conversational AI, you need to understand what kind of content buyer journey you are putting together and what meaningful insights you can provide, even when you are doing some type of consultative selling to each one of these roles. So you are relevant, and your information is pertinent and deemed valuable by those actors role in the persona roles. Um, when we talk about real-time data unification and identity resolution, we are putting emphasis on this, but we are not the only ones. So Forrester, the analyst group, recently published their B2B CDP for 2023. It's actually just published a couple months back, where they detail what it's needed in order to improve audience creation and personalization, what we were just talking about. And they cite three things: real-time data unification and identity resolution, support for buying groups, and AI for insights, journey mapping, and next best action, as I was describing part of those journeys. All these things, as you can imagine, build on top of each other, right? So you need a cornerstone foundation with data unification and identity resolution in order to have the buying group support that you need. And then with that, you can build the insights journey uh, with AI help for all those different personas in the buying group. By the way, that report, it's linked in this talk, so you can go ahead and download it, and you'll see all that detailed information. Okay, and now I think Amish is gonna walk us through the actual building and execution of this identity resolution assembly of prospect buying teams.
Great, thanks, Felix. So as Felix said, now we're going to walk you through some really practical, proven steps on how to think about building and executing your initiatives around identity resolution, getting the buying teams right, and then ultimately how to execute end to end. In terms of how we laid it out, there's effectively three overall steps. Step one being really building out the identity resolution framework using enrichment and third-party signals and combining that with your own internal data to build the right framework for the profiles. After that, step two is really focusing on the buying teams. What sort of coverage do you have today? How do you identify the missing people? And how do you effectively then prioritize the right buying teams within the right organizations at the right time to optimize your execution strategies? And then step three is all about execution. So how do you create sort of a unified, aligned approach across the various go-to-market functions and the different channels where your buyers are to deliver those ideal customer experiences? And then it's about iterating, learning from what's working, what's not, and maintaining and optimizing that strategy on an ongoing basis. So this is really what we're going to walk you through here as part of the detailed content here in the next steps. So step one really is about establishing your identity resolution framework, because this will be the foundation for how you're going to establish, how you bring the different IDs together. So for example, there are a lot of different identifiers you can consider when you think about building your specific framework. There's what are known to be, unique identifiers at the person and company level. There's other identifiers that can be used to support other use cases. And, there's industry. You might have your own specific identifiers you have in your own proprietary systems that may be helpful to bridge the gap between first and third party data. And the idea is to really establish a bit of a agnostic and flexible framework and use a variety of sort of matching algorithms to bring these identities together to establish that sort of 360-degree view of a company, a person, and effectively, the buying teams. As a sort of a pro tip here, we really believe an agnostic framework is optimal because it's going to allow you to incorporate new data sources that might have different IDs to join data as future use cases and initiatives require it. Ultimately, it is always a good idea to have a set or a primary ID, and then use a framework to support other IDs in sort of a waterfall logic, if you will. Really can help you ensure that you're designing a framework that can scale as your initiatives and needs change. So that's step one. Step two is, once you have the idea of how you want to bring these IDs together, It's really about enriching your existing data with third-party data to ensure you have optimal coverage for these signals. For example, certain signals that you might want to use for identity resolution, like website, may not be applicably available all the time in all your data sets. So being able to enrich those data sets with core ID signals plus other signals about companies and people will ensure once you bring these IDs together, you have a comprehensive understanding of who the companies are, who the people are, and how you might want to segment, target, and engage them effectively. A few of the signals you can see here on the screen that you should certainly consider are signals about the company, the firmographics, if you will, signals about the individual, what's their role, title, unique skills, etc. What technologies or products do they currently use in their tech stack, in their go-to-market strategies that could be relevant to what products and solutions you offer. And then combining that with all that rich internal data that may be siloed that can help you really complete, that profile understanding. Essentially, it's also a really good idea to have a data management strategy that makes it easy to acquire and activate new signals because, as we've learned through our experience here, use cases and initiatives change. The more easy it is to incorporate new signals to support those use cases will make it easy to scale and create a repeatable process to maintain your identities and profiles over time. So once those first two steps are executed, it's really about bringing them together. So how do you unify all this rich first and third party data with the IDs you've established for your framework to get that 360-degree view of a company, a person? This illustration here really shows what that could look like at the end of the day. It's about understanding the account hierarchies. IDs can be used to establish the relationship between parent and child entities, subsidiaries, specific country headquarter or regional locations that could be valuable to understand from a company structure. Ultimately, using these IDs to establish lead to account matching support in real time and across your entire database, not limiting it to your map and CRM systems per se, but also any of the other data sets you might have internally that have valuable account data. The ability to match all of that together will essentially allow you to establish the foundation for the buying teams and the profiles you're going to need to be able to execute on this for your various marketing, sales, and other go-to-market initiatives. Another pro tip here would be, ensure that as you think about operationalizing this, that you're incorporating how you want to be able to do the matching, updating in real time, as well as how you're going to want to maintain and update these profiles and identities on an ongoing basis. So it's important to incorporate that into your data and solution architecture strategy as necessary. So that effectively is sort of the key components for step one. Now, as we get into the next part of the execution, it's really about, now that you've brought all the data together, you have all that additional signals combined, so you have that profile view, do you really have the coverage for the right people within those buying teams that you care about for your own go-to-market efforts? And so in this illustration, I know it's a little hard to see some of the details here, but we're highlighting an IT security persona. So if you're a company that sells IT security products, that's going to be one of the target buyer personas that you're going to want to engage through your efforts. And one of the things we want to highlight here is, as you think about personas, it's important to go beyond just job title, level, and department type data. There's so many signals out there now that you can incorporate into your persona methodologies, where looking at things like, what other products and technologies have they used in their career? Do they have experience around? That can tell you, what type of IT security professional or area of expertise they may have within their own role. Looking at other signals that are available on the web and social, think of like how people get endorsed for skills and expertise on their LinkedIn profiles. It can tell you a lot about, what disciplines within the security realm, again, they might focus on. And by being able to weight these signals in terms of the importance that matter for you and your business in terms of what you sell, will allow you to create very precise personas that give you the context to be really relevant from a targeting segmentation standpoint. Again, just another pro tip here. When you think about analyzing your existing buying teams, it's our recommendation that you should look at all the relevant buyer personas you have that could be applicable for your various product and solution or services portfolio you have to offer. That way, as I get into the next step here, when you actually apply these personas across your existing data, so think of leads, contacts, and people you already have in your known universe, you can really understand where you have great coverage and where you have potential gaps. So in this illustration, what we're highlighting is there's a set of IT personas that we segmented the database across. And this is because this company sells IT specific products, if you will. What you'll notice is about 10,000 people here we analyze. Over 50%, 5,200 to be exact here, are not tied to one of the four key personas I actually care about. So that shows you that there's a lot of people potentially in the database that are not as relevant for this specific buying team group. On the other hand, you can see that from an IT decision maker's perspective, there's pretty good coverage. And maybe some of the other personas don't have enough coverage for some of your target accounts. This is how you can identify the gaps. And in our perspective, in our experience, it's really ideal to try to proactively acquire all those missing contacts to ensure you have comprehensive coverage for all your high value target accounts and customers, the various territories for your sellers, to ensure that the reps don't necessarily have to go and prospect every single day and find the missing players. If you proactively put them in your system, it's more about focusing on how do you engage in the right relevant way at the right time versus, again, trying to find them when they're not readily available. Once you have that established, you really have a great foundation for exactly how the identities have been built, the buying personas, and what sort of coverage you have in your existing environment. And now you've also acquired those that are missing. It's all about how do you prioritize the right accounts and the right buying teams at the right time. So this is an example of how a lot of our customers are operationalizing a variety of signals. But the key takeaway here is it's important to incorporate the fit of the account. So if you're selling in this case, a specific product around server infrastructure, you want to know which of the accounts out there look like my best customers that have already bought our server products. And that's where the high fit A, B, C, D sort of classification comes into place from a scoring standpoint. Then you want to be able to couple that with, where are they in their own buying journey, so you can meet them where they are and provide that ideal customer experience and understand, are they potentially already in an active buying cycle for something you have to offer? And one of the ways you can incorporate that is by looking at, third-party intent signals. What are they doing anonymously before they even engage with you? That will give you signals to indicate, hey, we should prioritize our efforts to try to engage these accounts. They're the right fit, the right time, and here are the right people based on the buying teams that you've assembled already to go after. Furthermore, one other element that you can add beyond that is incorporating even your first-party engagement data. So how have they already engaged with some of your content through your various outreach efforts? Are they hitting your website? Are they opening emails? Any other activities? So the most effective way we've seen to be able to prioritize this across the board from a company and person standpoint is to incorporate sort of a four-dimensional scoring model, if you will. Once you now understand which accounts you want to go after, the timing's good, you have all the people you care about, it's all about putting it into action. And so step 3 is really about how do you execute aligned strategies across different functions, whether it be marketing and sales, your digital advertising campaigns. This is an example of just a couple of plays here, focused more on the sales side and sort of a outreach to the BDR lens, if you will. But the idea is with all of these signals and these unified profiles and the buying teams that you have access to and the additional signals, you can really start to optimize various plays, whether it be new logo acquisition, cross-sell, upsell, specific competitive takeout campaigns, buyer-specific plays if you want to target a specific type of persona you want to go after. and or even church mitigation as another example. And the whole is to be able to provide all of these actionable insights in a way where it's easy for everyone to connect the dots to understand what to do next. So from a next best action standpoint, we're really trying to eliminate the guesswork and make it really easy from a data driven standpoint to understand what to do next. And the goal is, as you're able to do that more consistently in a more unified way, it's going to help drive increased engagement, conversions, and improve the ROI of your investments in the various systems and sort of strategies you're spending a lot of time and resources on. Once you've got a lot of these campaigns and different outreach strategies in motion, it's certainly about iterating and monitoring what's happening to ensure that you're adjusting and course correcting where necessary based on the results you're seeing. So this is an example of sort of a dashboard or reporting that illustrates, are those high fit companies that we are focusing on, are they actually driving more of the conversions and more of the revenue we'd expect? Because that's the goal. As we think about high fit accounts here, they generally can convert 3 to 5 times better than your average account if you're just picking an account without using this sort of scientific approach. It's going to yield a lot more efficiency and results at the end of the day. So in summary there, the goal is to ensure that you're setting up the standardized reporting you need to be able to track the various KPIs that are most important to your business in terms of growth KPIs and operational KPIs. All right. And the last step here we'll highlight is the need to maintain and optimize. So, the last step I showed you, it's important to kind of monitor the reports and analyze and course correct where necessary. But in addition to that, it's important to have sort of a closed loop reporting and feedback mechanism. So you're able to iterate and optimize, not just, based on some of those high level metrics, but being able to incorporate new data into, models, scores, and even updating the profiles you have on a periodic basis, because that ultimately will yield the best results over time if you have a consistent framework for how you want to sort of manage and execute on those refreshes and updates on an ongoing basis. So those were the steps we believe that if we boil it down, those are some of the critical steps that you should be focusing on to build, execute your identity resolutions, your buying teams, and then how you put it all in action. I want to close here with just an example of one of our key customers in the hospitality space. In terms of our partnership, where it started off with us effectively building that identity resolution framework with them. They essentially had their own proprietary data sets internally where they had user data, different customers and prospects. They had their CRM data. They also had a huge repository of B2C profiles, given the nature of their business was B2C and B2B overall. And so what we did was we worked together with them to identify which IDs were most important. We used that to build the profiles across their first party data and our third party data to create those comprehensive profiles at the company, person, and buying team level. You can see some of the results it benefited in. It really helped incorporate a better lead to account matching solution. So when we activated this framework, we made sure that this unified graph, if you will, that we built for their specific customer data set could be activated in real time. So we could match against their entire internal proprietary data set as soon as the lead came inbound. So they already would know, is this an existing customer? Are they an active user? And if so, they might want to treat them differently. So being able to make that decisioning in real time by being able to match to this other internal data set really took their lead to account matching solution to the next level. By not ignoring webmail leads, which historically, since they didn't have a way to match B2C profiles, think of Gmail, Yahoo, your standard personal email domains that might be used. they were ignoring those leads effectively. So they weren't even thinking about prioritizing those. But the reality is a lot of those personal emails are associated to the businesses they do want to target and the professionals that they do care about. So by being able to bridge that gap, they were now able to qualify a lot of that inbound demand uh, to help drive more quality leads and pipeline effectively. Ultimately, we are also now working on other initiatives around helping them better segment their audiences, looking at their performance data to further iterate and optimize. As we said, this is an ongoing basis, not a one and done thing. But we've established a very flexible framework for them, so it's very easy for them to again improve and see continued value as we partner on these initiatives together. With that said, the last slide here, in terms of one of the things we want to highlight is we're here to help. We just walked you guys through sort of our methodology and how we see this end-to-end process, but we are always willing, when the time is right, to kind of prove our ability to support these. So, the call to action here basically is we're willing to offer a free custom assessment. We do a variety of different custom assessments given the use cases and initiatives and priorities that you may have as a business today. For some, it's, I need to understand the health of my existing database and profiles. For others, it's, I really don't understand what my ideal customer profile truly looks like. And for others, it's combining both of those and really understanding how do you put that into action to help them figure out what their total addressable market opportunity looks like. So these are just a couple of examples that we'd love to entertain if the time is right.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nish. Much appreciated. We are going to be closing in a minute. I just wanted to highlight why we are here speaking about all these issues around B2B, buyer data, around CDPs. We consider ourselves one of the top contenders in the space. These are our customers that you every day are using our technology to reach their prospects and customers worldwide. So that gives us that ability to understand what the multinational large corporation issues are, and that's how we serve them. I wanted to see when we are closing here. These are a couple of email addresses that you can use to send us questions. There's a question from Carol. Amish, probably you can help us with this. He's asking, she's saying, you talk about refreshing models, profiles, and data. What is the best practice for how often you should refresh those?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the first thing I would say is, ultimately we have our point of view on all of this. Use cases matter tremendously here in terms of how you want to think about the different cadences. But at a high level, I would say, from a company perspective, more often than not, when we think about account data refreshes, there's a couple elements. One is, how often should you update your accounts across the board in terms of the firmographics, et cetera. More often than not, we see that it can be aligned to sort of territory planning season where you want to make sure you're updating everything and you get the assignments right and you're able to create those new territories. But if you want to keep the most up-to-date information, we would recommend quarterly updates from just more the core firmographic data. When it comes to things like what technologies and products they're using, we typically recommend even up to monthly cadence for those signals. Now, when it comes to even more dynamic signals like intent, weekly at a minimum is really what we would suggest there. On the contact side, people are switching jobs, they're getting promoted more now than ever, arguably. So we think, a monthly contact refresh is certainly a good cadence for making sure you're staying on top of that movement and the changes to, what people are focusing on, their roles, et cetera. And then ultimately, the other thing I would just say is, the majority of the time, you want to be able to apply these signals at the point of interaction. So as much as possible, being able to provide real-time activation of any of these signals to support any use cases will ensure that you're getting the most up-to-date information when you need to make decisions on what to do next whether it be a lead, an account that gets created that's new, so on and so forth.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amish. Thank you for the session today. Thank you for those of you that attended or are watching online. We'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.